Morning. Thank you. And yes, I decided to take my shoes off. Wayne Dyer is actually one of my favorite self-help type of speakers, and I used to watch a lot of his lectures, and he says that if you go everywhere in the world in shoes, the whole world feels like rubber. He also spoke about speaking in sacred spaces. And for me, this is a very sacred space because I can feel all of the love. I've spoken to a lot of people this morning, and I've asked them why they're here. And most of us are here because of our title, because we're better together. Am I speaking loud enough for you guys?
No.
Okay, I'm sorry. So yes, again, I'm very honored to be here in this space and to be able to be giving you guys this presentation. So before I move any further, I actually want to introduce and allow the actual stars of the show today to give you a real quick speak about who they are and why they're here. So we're just going to go with how it is on the PowerPoint. So I'm going to leave with Dr. Quebec Logan.
Okay, thank you, Brother Kobe.
Stand up and come up if you want, or you can sit there. It's up to you.
I don't think anybody can stand up. It's encouraged me. I'm being encouraged to sit down here. But thank you so much. My name is Dr. Quebec Logan. I'm a clinical psychologist here in the Valley. I own several practices. One is called Think Psychology. We do therapy with children to adults. And then I have another business where we do testing. Psychological evaluations, psychoeducational, psychosocial, what have you, just a whole range of testing called the Arizona Multidisciplinary Evaluation Testing Center. I've been in practice over 25 years. I've been in private practice. I think I opened my first office in 2017. And interestingly enough, I was talking the bishop, was talking not well versed, I'm sorry. I was talking to the bishop about my start here, and I mentioned Dr. Wooten, who's in the audience here, as being one of the first people I sought out when I decided to go into private practice, and how she opened her doors to me free of charge. And spoke to me and gave me some sage advice into going into private practice here in the Valley, and how that was such a blessing to me. And I was happy to have met Dr. Wooten's acquaintance, and I reach out to her every now and again when I have questions about things. So thank you so much, Dr. Wooten, for helping me along my journey here in Phoenix. I'm a clinical psychologist here, and I'm easy, well, according to Dr. Wooten, I'm not easy to reach, but I'm easy to reach, mostly by phone, definitely old school in that regard. So we can talk a little bit more about that afterwards.
Okay. I'm not looking at that. Why are you here?
Because you asked me to come. I'm here because, well, certainly because, as my fraternity brother asked me, to lend my expertise to this particular forum, and I was happy to do so because I think mental health, particularly in today's time, is of the utmost importance, specifically when it comes to people of color. We're typically more disconnected from accessing mental health than other communities. So I think it's vitally important that we have these conversations, not only around mental health, but mental health and people of color, and how we kind of fit into the whole mental health paradigm, and why it's important for us in particular to access mental health services, particularly in these days and times of everything that's going on in our country and in the world.
Excellent. So really quickly before I move on to the next panelist, I just want to share a thought that I have, which is that I do believe that honesty can build trust. Transparency and vulnerability builds bonds. And so for me, why is always very important. And I really appreciate your answer. And I just want to let you guys know that I did not prepare them for any of this. So their why is happening in real time and very genuine, because I want you guys to see the compassion that I've heard in all of their voices through the conversations that I've had with them. So our next panelist is Stacey Ellis. He is a BHT administrator. Would you mind starting by letting us know what BHT stands for?
BHT means behavioral health technician, but that's just a title. My name is Stacey Ellis, and I bring about 25 plus years in the social services field, ranging from children, youth, and families. I was an investigator with Child Protective Services for 7 years. Investigative supervisor I am now. I've been in the behavioral health field for the last 14 years. As of recent, my last 2 years as an administrator with Community Bridges Behavioral Health. I oversaw and oversee the highest acuity of assertive community treatment teams. That is the highest acuity of outpatient mental health in the outpatient offices. The majority of the members served are homeless, indigent, and the programs I oversaw saw 5 assertive community treatment teams at Community Bridges, and they provide outpatient behavioral health. They go in the community to engage them. Treatment is provided. We meet them where they're at. The main components of the outpatient behavioral health is their access to care. There is vast disproportionality and disparities in that area of mental health. Mainly, in my opinion, because a lot of time mental health you get stigmatized. People of color are stigmatized as angry, and historically, and even in my experience, behavioral health or mental health was not emphasized in the homes at that time. The way it was addressed at that time was your mom knew how to handle it. You know, you think you're crazy, I'm gonna show you crazy. You know, but as you know, when you know better, you do better. And it's a lot of times folks are not provided the access to care, are unaware of those places where you can get that mental health. And a lot of times in the Black community, that is an issue as well. It can be embarrassing. It can be a sign of lack of strength. And at some point in time, we all, regardless of whether we know it or not, we all experience some type of mental health in our lives. It may not be as severe as those who are diagnosed with a serious mental illness or general mental health, but those symptoms should be addressed properly as well, because if they're not, they can continue to snowball into bigger situations that can bring more problems than good into their lives. So I represent the access to care, the treatment outpatient portion of the mental health field, resources, provide services to persons who are needing that level of care services. And the reason I'm here is because you asked me to. So as I mentioned, I've been a social worker. I have a bachelor's degree in social work. I've been a social worker for over almost 30 years. So I have a variety of experiences in different areas of social services.
Okay. In our next panel, let's hope that she doesn't cut me off so I can't ask my line question. Sophia Campbell-Burrell. She's a therapist and an LMSW. So would you also start by letting us know what your letter statement?
Yes. Good morning. Okay, so LMSW stands for Licensed Vested Social Worker. I'll be going for my clinical license soon, so I'll be a clinical social worker, so LCSW. So pray for me, y'all. I'm gonna get it by June. So I have 15 years of experience of being a social worker. I'm originally from Philadelphia. I did child welfare for 10 years, and I'm a pretty straight to the point type of person, so I'm not gonna give y'all no long story. I'm gonna get straight to the point, all right? So did child welfare for 10 years. Then I went into the medical field, did that for 3 years, and then I became a therapist for 2.5 years right now. I believe with the experience that I have with being in a child welfare system for 10 years, medical social work, I can provide services to the people through therapy, even uplifting them through like a medical issue, helping them with their parents, whatever. I I want to uplift people, inspire them so they can be the best version of themselves, basically. The reason why I'm here is because I feel like there's not enough help for men in general when it comes to mental health. And he asked me to be here. But outside of that, just also, I'm big on resources. A lot of times people don't know where to start, how to begin, so I want to give resources. And most of the time in my session, I'm giving resources because a lot of times people are experiencing depression, anxiety, and things because of the situation. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have general anxiety or depression. It might be the situation causing you to have those things. So therefore, if I can provide that resource or service to help bring that down, then that's what I'm going to do. Also giving you coping skills on how to deal with it. But just being realistic. And typically in my sessions, I'm myself. And I ask people to be themselves too, be authentic. So, and again, like I tell people when it comes to therapy, if I'm not the right one for you, find that person who you connect with so that you can be yourself and do the work. So that's all I got.
She's lying. She got a lot more.
Shut your mouth.
So I'm going to smoothly pass the microphone to my brother Corey Jones, who's also a therapist, LAC, and I am 100% positive and sure that does not stand for the Los Angeles Clippers.
Licensed associate counsel. And that's because I'm still within my clinicals before I go independent. So that's just real quick. Corey Jones, praise the Lord. Y'all gave her a hand when she got down. So I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. I got my BS in psychology at Langston University, and then here at GCU, I got my master's in clinical mental health and counseling. And just more recently, I began my doctoral at Liberty University in August in clinical psychology. So I do this job here. So I'm thankful for that. What else?
Why are you here?
I just wanted to hear.
No, actually, no, because you guys are ruining my question. I'm changing my question on the fly.
Wow, I mean.
No, yeah. I don't know, because I trust you. You got this. Why are you in the mental health field at all? Like, what makes you, you're very passionate about this as far as I can see, but why are you here? Why are you in that field?
Why not be? I don't see too many of us in this field at all. First of all, I was a natural hustler growing up, and so I thought that my weakness would get me to my strength. I thought that if I seen something, I can gain and get a lot of money, but I learned that this is actually why I'm here on this earth, my path, And so just coming from a poor background and understanding, I had 8 aunties, 9 uncles, the majority of them crackheads, out of the military, from the hood of Detroit. And for some reason, I knew how to have a conversation with them when they were high, and kind of spark them out of that. And even being older now, within this community, being at the Boys and Girls Club, I would, as opposed to being out there on the field with the kids, all the parents would line up in my office just to talk to me. And this before I even was knowing, like, I'm walking in like a, and so I'm actually living who I am right now. I'm very comfortable in this. Right now, currently, I see probably 28 patients, not a month, y'all. It's spread out. It's spread it out. But I'm very comfortable. I never get burnt out. I'm not going to say never because I pray, and that's what keeps me not burnt out. But I love what I do. I enjoy what I do. And so that's the reason, for sure.
That was wonderful, and I appreciate you guys, like I've been saying all morning, for being open and allowing yourselves to be here and to be a part of this. And so, my name is Copeland Richards. I haven't always been connected with the community. I've actually worked very hard to disconnect myself for a long, long period of time. It was almost until I was 37. And then when I was 37, the Lord decided to bless me with a child. And when I met this child, I saw myself. And I remember who I used to be before the trauma. I don't know how many of you follow comic books, but I've learned that many of us men, we operate like Batman. We're very stoic. We don't want, nothing rattles us. Most of us want to be Spider-Man. We want to have jokes. We want to laugh. We want you to laugh at us. Like, you see what just happened? I'm choking a piece of candy while trying to talk to you guys. That's funny, and that's okay. And what I learned is that when watching my son, he naturally loves. I didn't teach him how to love. I used to be that. And there was a point in time where I got hurt by something. And then I became afraid of being hurt again. And so I started developing and creating all of these boundaries and all of these barriers. And as I got older and I started, I don't think it was me. I'm not gonna lie to you. I wanna give a big shout out to the founder and CEO of Getting My Cheese Back On My Grind, Paige Benjamin, because he is a very technical person. And if you were to look at his resume, you wouldn't understand how much this man cares. He helped me to break down a couple of my barriers. And in breaking down those barriers, it started to make me see that at no point ever did I not want to connect with people. The truth is that I just became afraid. So I became a mental health advocate because I started working on breaking down those barriers and becoming a partner to the community and learning how to work in the community. Relearning how to not live in my defenses, but living in my offenses. And my offense is love. And so that's the reason why we're here today. That's the reason why we have these therapists here. We want to show you, and I would like to show you for them, professional compassion. I believe that all of these people, they have natural God-given compassion, but they also have the ambition that was given to them to where they turn that into their profession. And they are here for us. And so I wanted to create a platform where I could show them so that you could see them. And if any of you are in that space where you want to love, but you're afraid of it, we're dealing with traumas. I know that if there's not somebody up here who can help you, they know somebody who can. There may actually be somebody in the crowd who can help you. And I've received that help throughout my time. I've had people who have actually stopped and listened to me and spoken to me. There was a lot of time in my life, people would say, if I was you, I would want to be a lawyer or a doctor, you know? I don't like lying like that, and I don't like blood. So for me, that didn't work. This is what I wanted to do. I always wanted to create a web. I see points of connection, and I want to create a web so that as our community, we don't have to fall all the way to the bottom. We can create that safety net. And it's absolutely necessary. So that is the reason why I am here today. I am here today not just because Black men go through things, because the Black community has gone through things. I happen to be a Black man who looks in the mirror and wants to start with a man in the mirror. And so I just want you guys to remember that the goal is we are better together. So my mental health is not just for me. It starts with me. But my mental health is actually so that I can freely love in the way that God intended me to, which He happened to show me through my son. I didn't know that was off the top of my head. I'm not gonna lie, I'm very emotional right now. And I'm not gonna cry. I might cry.
It's okay, you could cry.
Okay, I'll cry later. But I really just want to speak to a couple of conversations that I've had over the past couple of days, which to me has shown that what we're doing today is absolutely 100% right. I spoke to Pastor Miller on the phone. I'm sorry. Thank you for that. So I spoke to Pastor Miller on the phone many, many times. And every single time that I speak to Pastor Miller on the phone, we are trying to accomplish some business. But every single time that I speak to her on the phone, she speaks to my soul. I'm going to share with you our first conversation where I told her. I told her, I'm a very blessed man. And I am. Like, I have therapists as friends. I'm a very blessed man. So I told her, God takes care of children and fools. In my old age, what are those categories that I can fall into, right? And so, of course, Pastor Miller's like, no, you're not a fool. And so I accepted it. And I took it. So I longer a fool. So I stand before you, as me and Sean just spoke about this morning, as a child of God.
Yes.
And not just a child of God, because I'm growing. I'm a servant of the people. And so I was rushing to get back here. I'm a truck driver. And of course I'm learning. I'm not gonna make it, I'm not gonna make it. Even though I know I'm gonna make it. And so I break down. My truck breaks down. And I pull over right at the gas station. And I'm looking for mobile mechanics. I'm in between Las Cruces and Albuquerque on 25. There's nothing there. So I was literally at the gas station for 12 hours. And every truck that came in that looked like a mobile mechanic, I approached it. So this one guy comes in with a really shiny truck. And I thought it was a mobile mechanic. It wasn't. It was a pilot car. So he had nothing for it. But as I woke up, I walked to him and I started talking to him about what was going on. I asked him, and I promise you, I had absolutely no idea how the conversation transitioned. But he ended up telling me the reason why he's working is because he just lost his daughter to cancer. And everybody that knows me knows that I lead first and foremost with my love of my son. And that is my greatest fear. I'm having to bury a child. And so in that moment, as I'm standing here, I'm even more appreciative of the energy that I was given because I was 100% worried about getting here to you guys. And I wanted to get my truck fixed. But I stayed there for about 45 minutes to an hour because that man didn't actually need to speak about his religion. He needed to speak about how much he loved his daughter. And so I listened. And I could tell that that's what he needed. And the reason I could tell that that's what he needed is because sometimes that's what I need. And so that's why I'm blessed. I'm blessed because I, as Corey said, have been able to take my weakness and turn it into a strength for you guys. So, yeah. Thank you for having me. You guys look beautiful. You sound beautiful. I'm very happy. And that is another reason why I've taken off my shoes. I feel like I am actually coming into the space and I'm actually feeling all of you guys because as you smile, my head actually turns to the gas station. But it's I'm feeling connected and I'm really loving this feeling. So, what are we going to be doing here today? We started out and we wanted to create a mental health panel. We wanted to have panelists to speak to you guys about mental health. And then we decided that there's a ton of mental health panels. And at some point in time, sometimes it becomes white noise. So how do we do something different? How do we really engage with you guys and show you something different? So what we would like to do today is we're going to be doing a couple of mock sessions to actually give you insight into what the therapy process looks like. A lot of times we feel like people are telling us, go to therapy, go to therapy, go to therapy, do this, do that, but they're not telling you what it looks like. It's not making you feel comfortable because it's still mysterious. So what we're here to do today is we're going to demystify that process a little bit and normalize the process. So I'm going to be starting with Corey Jones. This is going to be our first game. And the reason why we're doing this is because a lot of times, I'm sorry, yeah, I kind of said that, yeah, remember it. A lot of times brothers feel like they got to do everything on their own. That's what society has trained us to do. And the reason why society has trained our community specifically to do that is because when we do reach our connective space, we are absolutely powerful and unshakable. And that's not really beneficial for a lot of people, except for us. So that's why we need today to do that. So yes, brothers, it's me, and this is part of my story, and I'm happy to share it with you today.
This is our conference hall right here. All right, so generally speaking, before you even begin the session, as a therapist, I'm assuming that the client or your patient, who we call Jill, is probably a waiting at this time. And and whomever you had in the office prior, we only give you some perspective so you can understand what your provider is going through as well. So as they take their new patient up back up front or they find up front, they probably want to ground themselves and get themselves together because they know who they're dealing with. They know that Mr. Copeland is probably going to come in with a lot of distractions, a lot of chaos, problems that he's been dealing with for years. We know this information. So we probably want to gather the room together, prepare our chairs, take some deep breaths. If you've been to the spirituality world, you probably pray. You want to mix those two in, for sure, because you need God to come in at some point and help guide you in some of these things. And then you want to also incorporate the educational component. So I'm walking up front, he's in the office, I'm already grounded, I'm prepared, the office mood is already set, and I'm ready to go. Mr. Cole, good to see you today. How you doing?
I'm alive, Doc. How are you doing today?
Fairly well. So immediately right here at this point, I'm looking at his body language. I see his hands is moving like they are right now, which is could be a little bit of anxiousness there. He's leaning a little bit, and he's still focused. But these are the things I'm looking at right now as we're going through a session.
So yeah, I mean, I'm here, and I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what can really happen, but most of my life I've been a pretty confident guy. You know, like I played sports, and I've been able to do a lot of things. Recently, nothing has been working out. And normally I'm okay and I'm able to just chalk it up, but I think some of the things that haven't been working out for me are things that I really want. And it's getting harder to keep on going and to absorb every single loss or disappointment. And I'm not even sure what that is. Like, I don't even know if that's a thing. Like, maybe I just need to go and make a situation, or maybe I haven't found the right thing to do, because I feel like I'm just in a funk. Because I don't feel like myself, but it feels like it's myself. And I don't know. And so I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I said 100%. I'm not even 15% sure what I should be doing. And if I need to keep going, or if like I just need to go live in the woods for a little while and stop trying to succeed out here. Well, a friend of mine suggested that I come and I at least speak to you before I hit the woods. Because I'm ready to hit the woods.
Well, I appreciate you for coming. It takes a lot of courage to even come and talk to someone about, some of the things internally that you're going through. So at this point, I already know the approach to use. I'm going to use something called person-centered, because I see that he knows how to solve his own, maybe his own problem, but he can encourage himself. So I need to bring that out of him. Okay, but so we go back into it, and I see that earlier in your life, you had stages where you were successful playing sports. You had a pretty good standard life growing up, and at some point, something happened that took away your confidence. Let's go back to that point right there.
So I don't know what that thing was, and I think the reason why I've lost things. I lose things all the time. Like I lose my keys in my house every single day, and I played sports, and I don't know if it's because we're expected to fail in sports. 50% is good in sports, 50% is not good in parenting, and so I don't know if it was a thing or if it's just been a culmination of things. And I've always had the issue. I've just been a lot better when I was younger at putting it to the side and kind of like, I think what I did, I buried myself in my work. And so maybe what had happened is that I lost work and I was failing at work. And so when that happens, where do I bury myself? That might have been the thing. I knew I would be here.
Well, I'll tell you this. Before you lose anything in life, it was already there. At some point, you had it already. It was already in you internally. You were already born with a certain gift, a certain way to live. You already had things in your life when you were born attached to you. And at some point, you felt that those things got taken away, which now you use a key word that's called loss. But you already had these things. So when you lost it, you just have to remember, how did you have it before? And how do you make yourself contain it when you get it back? How do you feel about that?
So the feeling, and I'm not gonna lie, that feels great because I'm thinking about, if you want me to be 100% honest, when I was a child, there was a period in life where I could fall asleep on the couch and I would magically wake up in my bed. And as you say that, those are the things that I think I want those comforts back. I think that's where, if I'm being honest, it's not so much the loss of work or failing. It's the lack of comfort. And the world's not very comforting. And so what I feel like I need to do for myself is I need to figure out a way to either find comfort in something that I'm doing or figure out a way to comfort myself.
Okay, so like I was telling y'all before, the approach that I used was person-centered. And as you can see, he's finding his own way out of this. He's learning that maybe I can do this and maybe I can do that. So the goal is not to change his perspective at this point. The goal is to encourage it and move him forward. Okay, good. So let's talk about some things you look forward to in life right now.
Okay? Just like off the top of my head, or you can ask me a question?
Just tell me some things you look forward to. If we move away from a certain point in your life and you lost something, I'm speaking to you as if you gained it back. You gained it back right now. So what do you look forward to doing now in your life?
Being a father.
Okay?
I think that being a truck driver and having to transition into that space pretty much when my son was born, I guess I felt guilty because I have a Caribbean father. And so anybody that has Caribbean parents, he was definitely in the house somewhere, right? And so his job or his role wasn't to be very emotionally supportive. And I used to be upset about that. But then I realized, that my father was doing the best that he could do and what he was doing. He didn't have this. He didn't have therapists as friends. And so one of the things that I look forward to the most is being my father and more for my son.
Good.
So and as you just asked me, I think impatience is my biggest problem because I want to do that today. But today I have to work and I have to make money for him. So, but that's what I want. I look forward to being an emotional part of my son's life. My father was a great father. He did everything that he had to do coming as a first generation person. Put me into private school. Probably should have been, but he did everything. And so I want to stand on his shoulders. And I want to give my son all that he gave me and more.
So, and just to give you all feedback, don't look at this as if, oh, he's just allowing him to talk. That's the ultimate goal of therapy, especially with an African American male. We don't have this opportunity. And when we get this opportunity with some of our friends, we're too embarrassed to talk about it. We don't even share with our wives or the people who we live and we're close to. We don't share these things. So for him to even talk and we continue to build a rapport, that's a plus. So I'm going to continue to push him to talk, communicate, and also kind of direct him certain answers that he might need. That's a positive that your father is such a leader in your life. I think that if we prioritize our goals, then we focus on leadership and being the best father to our child, because as you know, at some point in your own child's life, he will experience loss as well. But because you've already been down that path, you will be able to help him during that time. So I think at the same time that happens, you can transcend your life into a more positive role, and we can dismiss loss, turn it to gain, turn it to focus. How do you feel about that?
Honestly, I'm curious. There's a new concept, and so we're completely open here and honest, right? I don't believe you. I don't think that it's that simple because, like you said, I've had my son for 8 years now, and he's always been my focus. So I'm curious, I think, in this space to see. Let's try it.
Well, first, what do you believe in?
I mean, up until I came to see you, I believed in myself. I believed that in the power that God put in me to do these things. And if I'm in a space where, you're not really, there isn't that much help and support around you, it's not a mistake. I've been built for it. I've lived most of my life with, even though I had people around me, I've been around them while insulated inside my bubble. And I've been able to do it. So I do believe that, truthfully, I believe I can do it. If it can be done, I believe I can do it.
Okay, so I'm gonna start wrapping this up just because we normally do an hour in a session, but just remember everything can't get solved in one day. Sometimes when you're within the therapy role, it takes 6 to 8 months, maybe to a year. If you have dual diagnoses or some PTSD, you can probably possibly have therapy all your life if you need it. But I'm going to come on and lean him down and get him focused. And so how I'm going to do this is I'm going to give him things to think about and to bring back for the next session. Okay, so good. So here's what we'll do. We'll go internally and start thinking about some positive goals we want to accomplish within your life. I want you to only focus on the goals as opposed to the losses. Per goal, I want you to also tell me how is that attached to your son. So it's 3 goals. I want you to come back to our next session in 2 weeks, and I want you to correlate them with the goals of your son and his life as well. Would you be able to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to do that. Let's do it.
Let's have something to talk about in the next session because I want to be able to see growth, and I don't want you to be so codependent on my words. I want you to actually work on these things. Come back and we talk about it then.
So basically what you want me to do is to just come up with 3 goals for my life and how they connect to my son?
Correct.
So would you say that I would create the goals and then go to my son, or would I think about my son and then go out to my goals?
So create your goals and coordinate with your son on how you want it to be for your son as well, or how your goal will connect with your son as well.
Okay, I think that it's pretty simple. I can do that.
Now, before we dismiss, I want you to know that it's okay to have loss. Don't let nobody tell you that. It's okay to have grief. It's okay not to pass. It's okay to be a failure. It's okay to be name called. The worst thing you can do is not talk about it.
Okay.
So through this experience, I hope you gain some positivity, but some encouragement that you are able to move forward. All right?
Absolutely.
All right, we'll see you next session.
All right, absolutely. Thank you. Okay. So our next kid is going to be with Sophia, but I do want to take some time just to say something really quickly. You guys understand that these are skits and these are things that we're putting on, but these are actually also things that I am very passionate about that I may have been dealing with in the past. And one of the things that somebody, and even Corey had said it, that we're not going to solve any of our problems in the first session. And because of the people that are up here, and I want to say this to all of them, we may not solve all of the problems, but for me personally, feeling like nobody cares and feeling ignored, when somebody listens to you, a problem's already solved. That was a problem. And even in this 5 minutes, because it's one of the things that we were worried about, is that you can't fix anything right away. We're usually working on the big picture. But I always want to give the people that I work with flowers and tell them how phenomenal they were. And for Corey in that space, even though we had other things to work on, he solved the problem for me right away. He listened to me. and he saw me, and he created a lane for me. And so I want to say thank you to him for that, even though this is a skit, and I wanted to highlight that because I go really passionately into my roles, and right now I'm feeling love, and it's weird. So sometimes we can't express it the way that it needs to be expressed. So I wanted to use the words to just say that and say thank you for your participation. I love it. All right. Boom. Back to moderation now. Okay, so I'm going to bring Sophia to the stage because we are going to be working on how to say that.
So I'm going to actually kind of run my session as if sometimes I do like an intake. So I'm going to kind of go off like my brain as far as like intake questions, just so you kind of understand how I would do an intake, or if you want to do an intake to start therapy, you know what kind of questions they would ask, so you're not none of my business. So here we go, okay? And also too, this is how I would do it. Yes, I might be a little bit innovative, however, that's how I do things, and y'all see. Hey, how you doing?
I'm alive.
Okay, alive. When you say alive, I know you're about to do this intake. What you mean by that?
I'm not dead.
Okay, I can say that. So not good at that, but you're not dead.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
There's opportunity.
Good. So I was looking over this intake form. Even though, yes, they wrote down the reason why you're here, I always like to ask people themselves, what's the reason why you're here? Just so that we can build a rapport, and also so that I love hearing like your version of it. So hopefully you can understand good.
Okay. I've spent most of my life by myself, even when I was around other people. And so I've developed habits and behaviors around that. And I've grown and gotten to a point where I no longer want to do that. I actually have met people and persons that I want to connect with. And I'm failing.
Okay. So it's okay, I'm so glad that you're here. And some of the things that's changed is hard, however, I'm glad that you're saying into this form that you want to make changes, okay?
Yeah.
So, don't get offended by any of these questions, this is my job, sorry to ask these questions, so it's how I get to know you and how to help you, okay? So
you want to be 100% honest?
please do. I mean, I'm honest with you, and also I forgot to also let you know too as well, I have 15 years experience, child welfare, also did medical social work, as well as I'm doing spiritual behaviors as well. So, I'm a little bit animated. However, I come to be myself, I want you to be yourself as well. So if you feel like I'm not the therapist for you, I just want to give you that encouragement and empowerment. It's okay that I'm not the therapist for you. You can find someone else who is for you, okay?
Okay.
So I just want to empower you. I'm going to ask you that question again at the end, but just want you to keep that back in your mind.
If you're the therapist for me.
That's right.
Okay.
All right. So as far as risk factors and anything, have you ever had any harm to yourself or others?
Like cutting?
Yes, cutting, as far as any type of like thoughts of harm to yourself, any of those type of things.
So I'm not gonna lie. I've never thought of harming myself. There are many times throughout the day where I want to assault the person who's in front of me.
Here's that day.
And I don't, because I had a child when I came to jail. But yeah, definitely. I guess I could say I do have violent thoughts. I do.
Well, let's clarify that.
Okay.
Say violent thoughts is more so that someone picks you up at the job, or you have to ask your plan, like I'm gonna walk this person.
Oh no!
Okay.
I'm not gonna.
That's what I wanted to make sure.
Oh yeah.
All right.
It's it's in the moment. It's in the moment, and it passes.
Okay.
But it's very intense when it's happening.
Okay. As far as
Thank you. And I'm sorry for blocking you.
okay, so on to our next question. So going into like the history of trauma, inactivities, sexual, mental abuse, verbal, or name it, like it can be trauma. So as far as like, is there any history of trauma that we need to know about?
So when I think about it, there's not been anything like, I haven't been sexually abused or anything like that. But
What about emotional abuse?
So, does it have to be intentional?
No.
Okay. So then that's pretty much what it is, because I've been a big black man for most of my life. And the 18 years prior to that, I was a big black boy. And so there were times where I might have cried. But I remember the saying, big boys don't cry.
Okay.
I remember being told to be strong. And to be honest with you, I don't see anything wrong with it, because I feel good when I'm being strong.
Right.
I feel good when I'm able to protect and provide. And so, I don't know, but yeah, wow.
Okay, so I'll keep that in mind. So I'm gonna close right here. So with this whole intake thing, with gathering the information, as the client is trying to figure out if I'm a good fit for them, I also kind of evaluate, is this a good match for me? I kind of go for my internal instincts too as well. If I feel like someone's not for me, even though I'm in a situation at my current job where, I don't get to work with all people of color, sometimes I get to work with white people. I know I'm not for some of them, and I understand that, I respect that. So it's a evaluation for both of us, and I like to express like my concerns too, even though they I might feel like I'm for you. However, they might not feel, I give them that permission to be empowered. Like, let me know I'm not for you. I know I can solve the body language as well as their response. This ain't gonna work in the long run, because I don't want you to do this intake and then I show up and then get the help that you need. So I'm doing an evaluation too as well. So, all right. So move on to the next section and everything. As far as like educational, has there been any type of issues with education as far as like learning disabilities or anything like that you know about?
Yes.
Okay.
So, I don't know if it's a learning disability,
Okay.
but when I was a child, I had spiritually, I had a problem with the homework.
Okay.
And,
Talk about this.
okay, so I'm in class, and the teacher puts the stuff on the board. I understand it.
Right.
I'm 40 years old, so I was in elementary school in the 80s. And then I would go home, and these teachers would give me a book. And in the book, it's 50 problems that I have to do of the thing that I got today.
Right.
Yeah, I do it.
Right.
And so I want to also say that I know that I was wrong. But I was very passionate about it.
I can respect that, honestly.
And I spent a lot of energy to not do that homework. I feel like as a child, I was spiritually offended by the homework. And like people would always try to tell me, this is gonna make you a better person. And I believe that a lot of our parents bought into the idea of what education was, the integrity of education. I was seeing that that's not what it was.
Right.
And so I didn't participate in it fully. It was easy for me to take tests, because I have to be there anyway.
Right.
So I killed the test. Once you give me stuff, like I don't bring my dishes home to school,
Right.
If I don't finish them at home. So it was just kind of that. And again, I am saying I don't believe that I was right.
Right.
But I also don't believe that I had somebody to talk to me in a way to get me to wrap my mind around actually being successful in school.
So from what I'm hearing, it's like you was able to do the homework. However, this is spark the interest when you left school.
Yeah, no, it didn't spark my interest in school either.
Okay.
It just so happened that that's what was going on there. So if the teacher told me to do the homework in school,
Right.
that's easy. But at home, that's where all my stuff is at.
Right.
That's for video games.
Now, did your parents force you to do it, or more so?
They tried.
Okay.
I told you I spent a lot of energy not doing homework. So there was lying, there was hiding, there was showing a little bit like, yeah, here it's done. Can I go play Sonic the Hedgehog now?
Right. So as we wrap up the session, I have two more questions for you, okay?
Okay.
As far as like insurance, some people, they give you a whole bunch of insurance, some people struggle with it, but like, what are some insurance and you can't list any insurance, like what are some like your things you're proud of? So something that that I can list that you are achieving with it.
So I have lived a life where I've accomplished a lot of things that I shouldn't have been able to accomplish.
Okay, that's great.
Simply like, looking past 24 as a black man, like
Right.
triumph. And so I know that one of my strengths is the way that I feel. It's a double-edged sword. because it's also a weakness. But you can make me feel good about what it is that I'm doing. If I can find a way to feel good about what I'm doing,
Right.
I'm probably going to do a great job at it.
Days. Thank you. Because not a lot of people, they are hard time answering certain questions, so thank you so much for that.
Yeah, I mean, I had to pull myself up quite a few times. You gotta know what you do.
And just to wrap things up, like, so what's your goals out of therapy? What do you want to get out of this?
I don't know.
Okay, and it's okay. And some people just want to come and so that, just have a non-biased opinion, just have someone listening here because they're kind of like, they're fanning the friends for their problems. So it gives you an outlet. So whatever you want to do is to come and have that event session, I'm here, or you feel like I'm not for you. But yeah, once again, that's what I'll let you know. Okay, if you feel like I'm for you, you can definitely stay with me. If not, we're going to find the right person for you, okay?
Well, I can say this. I do have good friends.
Okay.
And some of them do let me down.
Okay.
Most of them will let me down. But I personally feel like venting is a step. There's gotta be more than that.
I'll say, well, definitely think about, so let me ask you, do you want to stay with me or do you want to find someone else?
I mean, for right now, I can, right now I'm here.
All right.
And I don't necessarily feel the urge to leave.
Okay.
So I think that, like I said, for me, it's feelings.
So let's take it out, let's take a couple sections, you say, hey, I like it live, if not, I want to take any offense to it, so please don't ever feel the type of way you need to go to see someone else, all right?
Can I be honest with you?
Be honest.
I'm gonna feel away.
All right, feel away then.
Okay.
I'll let you feel away, all right? So that kind of said, guys, in one session, all right? Let's
Whew. I took my podium. Feel kind of strict out here. But again, that was phenomenal. I'm trying to get out of the role, and get back to the moderator. But as I sit there and I speak with Sophia, it's very empowering for me to even know now, the same way that we're looking to show you guys what's going on in therapy, this is actually also very beneficial for me because I've had my therapy sessions, but to be able to see what these guys are doing in that space is very, very inspiring for me because that was something that I've never gotten before as well in certain spaces. So it's very, I'm very, very excited about that and happy. And my heart is full. So now we're going to call Dr. Quebec Logan to the floor. And I don't expect anybody in their right mind to go through 3 therapy sessions in one day because normally they're like an hour and it's a lot of pouring and it gets tiring. So this is a little strong,
Just kind of preface this. Therapy happens a lot of different ways. Everybody has their own individual approach to therapy and just on the first 2 presenters. I'm very similar to Ms. Sophia in that I'm very direct. When I do therapy, I'm very, as a matter of fact, I try not to dance around issues. I try not to be around the bush. I like to be clear and concise and get to the point. Why therapy can be helpful, I'm not a big believer in therapy for life. If you're working with some therapists, they can have you in there for years. Period. Just by their approach. As the first presenter said, he has a person-centered approach. My approach is more solution-focused. I'm aiming for solutions. While your past is important, maybe 1 session to talk about your past. Maybe 1 session to cry about how bad life treated you, how tough things are for you, how terrible your childhood was, how bad your mama was, how your daddy treated you wrong, how he wasn't there. We talk about that for 1 session. After that session, we're going to talk about solutions. I'm not going to allow but I typically don't allow my clients to dwell in the past. And the reason being is because you can't change anything from the past. Right? Your past is your past. We all have gone through things. We all have experienced a certain amount of trauma, if you will, in our life, things that we don't like, things that made us feel the way, things we weren't happy about. But with that being said, you can't change any of those things. So I don't allow clients to dwell in their past and spend session after session after session talking about what's happened to them. So with that being said, I'll kind of skip around a little bit. Sophia did, I would initially do an intake. This is what you see and heard about initially do an intake. We would ask you basic demographic questions. What question on therapy? Tell me a little bit about your past. You on medications, you have any medical issues, suicidal ideation, self-harm, as she talked about earlier, and kind of some general things about the client to get a basic picture of what the client is there for, what the issues are, and some understanding of their background. After having done the intake, and then having the first session and allowing the client to talk a little bit about their past and all the things that you're going to talk about today, I get into what's called the miracle question. And just kind of jump ahead a little bit, but I'll ask this specifically in the field called the miracle question. And that question is a basic question. If you were to go to sleep tonight and a miracle happened, and you woke up tomorrow, and all your problems will be solved, how would you know?
Okay. I think I would feel relaxed.
Okay, if I was looking at you, I was watching you, what would be different about what you were doing if all these problems were resolved?
You're just looking at me.
If I was watching your everyday life, and your problems were all problems that we discussed earlier, all problems that you talked about previously, the things that brought you into that. Those problems no longer exist, a miracle happened, and I was watching you, what would be different?
I would be smiling in everything that I do, and I would be doing a lot more.
Okay. Who else would notice that you were different?
Probably the woman that I love. I think that for everybody else, I kind of put on the face that that's what it is already.
Okay, so if a woman that you love were noticing these differences, what would she notice?
She would notice that, like I said, that I smile a lot more, and that the things that may not go the way that I intended them to go, they don't affect me as intensely as they used to.
Elaborate.
So I get disappointed. And if you're allowed inside with me, you can see that disappointment very vividly. Sometimes it's expressed in anger.
All right, hold on, let me stop.
Yeah.
Okay. I want you to talk about behaviors. The woman you love was watching. She said, what would she notice that was different about you? She was actually watching you. What we say, you would be smiling, right? So you have to smile on your face. What else would she notice that would be different? So now I'm directing him to think about behaviors that would be different, right? Because it's easy to talk about, oh, I would feel this way, I would feel that way, and kind of get lost in the idea of how one will feel. But I want him to think about, if my problems were solved, the reason I came here, if those things were not happening anymore, what would I be doing different? Right? So we want to get out of our heads and get into actually behavior. Right? Because we can think in our heads all day long. And we can philosophize, oh, I would feel great, oh, life would be grand, oh, it would be beautiful, I would be such a better person. But what does that mean? Ultimately, if I was physically watching you, what would I see? How would you be different? One of the things he says, I would be smiling more, right? So I would key in on that.
Okay, you smiling. What else? What else would be different if the person that you said loved you was watching and you were different? Your problems would resolve. What else would they see besides you smiling?
I would see a lot more of what we call self-care.
Okay, what's that?
So it would simply be, I would be now focused solely on me, like as the entity and individual. So for instance, I'd probably get haircuts more often.
Okay, so you'd be smiling, you would get haircuts.
Yeah.
Okay, great. What else?
I'd probably be at the gym. I'd be waking up a lot earlier.
So getting up earlier, going to the gym,
And spending less
smiling.
time in the bed and in the bedroom. Because, well, I mean, not I'm talking about that, the early morning scene in the bed where it's like the contemplation moment, you know, not the,
So you'd be up early. You would kind of just kind of lay around in the bed.
yeah, I would get out of the bed a lot faster.
So you'd be up early in the morning, you'd be smiling, you're going to the gym, you would be more into self-care in terms of grooming and a haircut.
Yeah.
Okay, what else?
I'd probably be eating better.
Okay, you would eat that. Like what? What would you eat?
So I feel like at this point, you know, especially because of my profession, I consume a lot of meat. And I think the only real issue with it is that I have an issue with it. And I think about it every time I do it.
So
But I
what
still
would
do
you
it.
eat? I don't allow clients to go on and on and on and I kind of direct them back to the question. Right? But then see, Brother Cole can talk. He can talk. He can go on. I direct them back to the question. I try to keep things very, very focused. And the question was, what would you be eating? Right? And so,
A lot more fruits and vegetables.
all right, so you be eating a lot more. See, we got to, right? If I allowed him to talk, he kept talking. I redirect him. What would you be eating? More fruits and vegetables. So now you're developing a picture for the client of what he would physically be like, behaviorally, if his problems were resolved, right? And you're doing, I do this for one specific reason, not for a bunch of reasons, but the main reason is if you can get clients to identify the behaviors that they will be engaging in if their problems were resolved, the next step will be just to get them to do behaviors as if the problems was resolved, right? So for instance, a haircut. Go get a haircut, right? So before the session would end, one of the things we might assign as homework and say, hey, listen, man, you said one of the things, but I would name the things he said will be different about it. But one of the things you mentioned was that if a miracle happened and the problem was resolved, you'd be more in self-care, you would get a haircut. One of the things I want you to do after the session, I want you to go to a haircut. Okay? I want you to simple homework. I just want you to get you a haircut, right? So you direct them to engage in the behaviors that they identify they will be engaging in if they didn't have the problems that they came with earth. And if you have simple things like a haircut, I would be eating fruits and vegetables. I want you to go get a haircut, make sure you eat some fruits and vegetables. And we'll talk about that, right? So these are the kind of questions we go on. After I asked him about the lady he loved, I would then say, who else would notice you were different?
Some of my friends.
Like who? How about your son? I heard you talk about your son a little bit earlier on. Did your son notice some differences in you?
I don't know.
And you probably, well, you said you wanted to be more of a father.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you think if your problems were resolved and you got to be more of a father, your son notice a difference in you?
Yes.
Okay. What would your son notice that was different if your problems were resolved?
I think he would notice that I'm around him.
Okay. So you'll be around.
I'm not out chasing money as much here.
Okay. All right. So you'll spend more time with your son. You'll be around. What else?
I'm not sure. Because I don't think that he looks at me and sees the deficiencies that I see. So I don't even know if he would notice.
So you said he would notice, right? You said he would notice you if you were different.
Yeah.
Okay. So now what I'm trying to get him is to think about again, what would his son notice about him? What would he want his son to notice about him if his problems were resolved? If he was a different person, if he was being a father that he said he wanted to be, right? Because what you want the client to be able to do is to identify the behaviors that would be different if they didn't have the problems that they have. And if they can identify those behaviors, you don't have to go back and try to resolve the problem, right? You just get them to engage in behaviors that they would engage in if things were different, if their problems were resolved. But they have to think about it. Because a lot of times they say, I want to fix this problem with my son. I want to be more involved with my son. Okay, what would that look like? Right? Because it's easy to say, I want to be more present for my son. What does that mean? And more so, what does it look like if I was watching? I constantly go back to that. If I was looking at you. So I'm getting out of your head because I can't see your thoughts. If I'm looking at you, what would I see you doing that was different? If your problems weren't solved. And then I step through the different people in his life. He said, I asked, well, who else would notice the difference? My lover, the person I love, the woman. Okay, what would she notice? Who else would notice? My son. What would he notice? So you're getting them to identify the behaviors that would be noticeable if they didn't have the problems. And then I would step through other people. He said friends. Okay, your friends would notice that you were different. What would be some of the things that your friends would notice?
Less volatile with strangers and people.
So if I was looking at you being less volatile, what would I see you doing?
You'd see me being more jovial in my interactions.
All right. So kind of wrap it up, but that is kind of my general approach, right? Not allowing the client to delve into dwell in the past. Number one. Posing the miracle question, right? If you went to sleep tonight and the miracle happened, you woke up tomorrow morning and all your problems were resolved, how would you know? Because you want to get people to think about, how would I know that my issue is over? That things have been, corrected in my life. How would I know? And a lot of times we'll stay in our head with that question. Oh, I would be more happy. Life would be better. So we give these broad answers. But my approach is to get them to get out of the broad answers and get very specific about the behaviors that would be different. Right? Again, because the approach is to get them to identify the behaviors that they will be engaging in if they did not have the problem, and then get them to engage in behaviors as if the problem didn't exist. Right? So that's kind of the solution-focused approach that I use. I have a couple different approaches, just depending on for what we're doing today. That would be my approach. Because we talked a lot about the past and what's going on. I'm trouble with my son, and have a hard life, and all those things. So we're very, very focused on that, which is fine. And as I said, I'll give clients one session. I'll tell them, I'll give you one session to talk about your past. After that, I really don't want to hear about your past anymore because we can't change that. We're going to start talking about solutions, okay? And then focus them on if you didn't have the problems you had, if you didn't have the problems were resolved, what would you be doing different? And they identify things, easy things like a haircut. I actually had a client where that was one of the issues. He had, I want to move away from your situation, but I actually had a client had problems with women, right? But it was very disheveled. He had plenty of money. But he didn't get a haircut, wasn't very well groomed. So we didn't talk about all the problems he had with women. We talked about what would things look like if you had one, if you didn't have that problem. Oh, it'd be this way and that. Okay, I need you to start being this way and that way, right? I'm gonna have better clothes. All right, go shopping, get yourself a couple new outfits, go get a haircut, things like that. So solution focus. Identifying behaviors that would be different if the client have the issues that brought them into therapy, and then getting them to engage in those behaviors that they would engage in if they didn't have those particular issues.
Yeah, so my homework's gonna be a haircut.
Your home would be get a haircut.
See, and my homework's already done in the class. You see how that works?
There you go. And so we would start with small things and then kind of build from there. He couldn't readily identify what his son would notice that would be different. So with the next session, I will kind of explore that a little bit more. Let's talk a little bit more again about
the assignment and things that your son knows that would be different is a miracle. And try to get him to narrow down some behaviors that he believes his son will recognize and I will be more present. Right? It's one of the things I said. So maybe a homework assignment would be, I want you to schedule time with your son, take your son out, whatever the case may be in that. So.
Again, another phenomenal presentation by our therapists. Wow. I thought I was just going to be up here acting, but these guys really got me in my feelings, and I'm actually very happy for it. So what I would actually really like to do right now is I want to kind of open it up for crowd interaction, because that I think is one of the more important things. I see a couple of you have books out. I see a couple of you have been writing. So if you have any questions for the panelists, now would be the time. I will also stay in character, so just in case you have any questions for the Black man, I can answer them from my perspective as Copeland or my perspective as the Black man. Who wants to start? There we go. It's some of the, okay.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Paige Benjamin.
Actually, come on. Yeah, you can stop that. This is one of the major reasons why I'm even here, and this is actually even happening, is this gentleman right here. So I don't want him to come up here and not receive his flowers.
I am not the only reason why this is happening. The sanctuary and the people here is why this is happening, and these amazing panelists. But my question is, let's talk about the suffering in silence. We as African Americans, and then we as diasporans within the Caribbean, have this notion that we have to deal with it ourselves. How do you help someone who constantly believes that they have to suffer in silence to get through what they're going through?
Thank you.
Well, I think I mentioned it. If you talk from the African American perspective, in my opinion, it's the stigmatization. It's the image that you are not strong enough. So I can speak from experience. You tend to try to handle things on your own until unfortunately, and sometimes situations tend to continue to boil over. And then there are things that happen when you do that. I'll share a little bit, and I don't want to make this about me, but I experienced loss last year. My brother took his own life. I work in behavioral health. I help people to recognize the signs. Or do you want to kill yourself? Those are some specific questions. Do you want to kill someone else? You look for signs. And if you're raised a certain kind of way, like Copeland mentioned, boys don't cry. My wife tells me all the time it's therapeutic to cry. And I have to believe that myself. But a lot of times we keep it in because of that stigma. You're not strong. You're not the strong Black man. But I'm here to tell you that it is okay. I find pleasure in, although I do it by myself, crying. I do it by myself. It's a cleansing. It's a relief for me. But I think a lot of times it's a perception that it's a sign of weakness. You're not strong. You're not the man of the household if you're going to seek help. As I mentioned before, we all experience some kind of mental illness, whether you have that overwhelming feeling of grief when you're driving home, the depression of life. Those are signs, in my opinion, of mild signs of depression. I was diagnosed with actual depression after my experience with my brother. And I resisted medication for a long time because I didn't believe in it. I didn't want to believe in the side effects. I don't want the addiction, the suicidal, it's amazing how all these medications that's supposed to help you have the one side effect that I fear the most, suicidal thoughts. Why am I going to take a medication to help me out that's going to make me start thinking this? So a lot of times we're resistant to medication. I finally made the decision to accept that. And that's what it's going to come down to, is when you decide that I'm not going to let a stigmatization characterize me or define me when I know I need the help. Because if I don't need help, I'm not going to be there for my wife, my children, my grandchildren. Staying in silence is not the key. And if you see something, say something. We recognize that we're friends and we have our friends and our associates. When you see those signs, be that person and say, hey, bro, man, how you doing? Are you feeling all right? Check in with somebody. We all think it's good to suffer in silence, but in my opinion, in my experience, suffering in silence is not the key. It's just not the key.
I was going to say, I'm nice, short and sweet. I feel like a lot of times we don't give ourselves permission to feel that emotion. So, depending on how you were brought up, I have a Caribbean father. And if he get beat, he would say, shut up, why you crying? Type of thing. But then he grew up as an adult and he had this confusion of like, well, should I cry, should I not cry, type of thing. So I feel like a lot of times people don't allow themselves to feel. It's okay to let yourself feel safe. It's okay to let yourself feel sad. Give yourself permission to feel how you feel and go through it, process it, and move on. Don't harbor in it or feel confused about it. So that's how I feel.
You guys want to answer?
Sure, I'll chime in. I believe suffering in silence, or not seeking out services, particularly for people of color, it was a survival mechanism for many, many years, right? You couldn't readily tell people who were having issues because negative things would happen. As Bishop spoke about, and I think that's right, we're calling the right thing?
Yeah, that's why.
Okay. It wasn't even Bishop, this is Brother spoke about. Marion. His brother Marion spoke about, we have in our culture, we have a history of being mistreated by physicians, mental health professionals, and the like. All the way down from medical professionals, right? Black women have, one of the highest mortality rates among any women when giving birth, right? Why is that? We've been, you mentioned the Tuskegee experiment, where they gave syphilis to black folks and fake treatment. Really didn't treat them. And it's just to see how the disease would progress in black folks' body. So for a long time, it became a survival mechanism, not to say, I have this issue, or not to seek out medical attention, because many of the medical professionals were not people of color. You weren't sure if you were going to get the proper care. You weren't sure if you were going to be subject to some experiment or research study that was going on that you were just unaware about. You happened just to go in to get help, and you're part of some study that you don't even know you're a part of. So number one, it was a survival mechanism, first and foremost. Secondly, we're often taught in our homes, and I say this to my daughter to this day, what happens in this house, what?
Stays in this house.
Everybody heard it, right? So just by being raised like that as people of color, why do you think that was the case? Why do you think our parents told us that? Can somebody give a real quick answer?
In the event somebody outside the house used that information to take advantage of the family or affect the family in a negative way, or more importantly, it gets further so far out that you as a parent or whoever in the house can't solve it because now it's all over the street.
Right.
I think it's also because of who the parent wants the community to see them as.
I think back in the day, child services also was a hindrance, right? You have a lot of children that will slip and fall. I was one of the 30 rambunctious children. I got hurt, I got bruises, and I know for me, telling them I fell and hurt myself, they assumed my parents were mistreating me. So I think there's a lot of social norms that people who aren't culturally aware of how we grow up and how we live aren't seeing things from. This is just a young black man being rambunctious and running around. For black people, everything looks like abuse. So taking it from the house into the world gives other people a chance to judge us without really knowing the context.
Right, and when people judge us, especially professionals, that can lead to very, very negative ramifications, right? It can lead to your children being removed from your home. You can come to school with bruises on them and say, "Oh, I fell," this and that. A teacher may not believe them, right? And they may report to Child Social Services, Child Protective Services. And once you get a report, it's a report. They come to your house, right? They're coming to your home, period. It doesn't matter if the report is substantiated or not. They will be at your door. I'm speaking from personal experience, right? They'll be at your door, you know? So just bringing it back to the question, the kind of suffering in silence is a result of a lot of variables like that, right? Not knowing if the professionals are going to be there to actually help you, not knowing if there's going to be a negative stigma attached to it, if you're going to be looked at a certain way in your community, not knowing if information that you share is going to be used to negatively impact your family in some way, to negatively impact your job. So a lot of times we do suffer in silence. We are taught, what goes on in this house stays in this house. But I think the good thing is this, that today, with mental health, the importance of mental health being in the forefront, and a lot of arenas and a lot of people speaking about it, such as in this particular forum. People are becoming more comfortable, people of color are becoming more comfortable with seeking out help. They're learning that it's not necessarily good to suffer in silence. Now mind you, we can't be running out in the streets to spread our business, right? To a certain extent, but we're learning that there are people like the panelists on the stage. There are people like Brother Murray that are out there, that are involved in these organizations, that are there, and they have our best interests at heart. So we're learning as time goes on to access different services. We're learning that these services exist, right? He spoke about some services he didn't know existed for 30 years, right? He being in the field and not doing those things. I learn about new services all the time. Fortunately, I think we're coming to a point in today's society where a lot of people still suffer in silence, but in my opinion, not as many, right? We're more open. Like even Brother Stacy right here, he said he was against medication, against therapy and all that. And Stacy is like my younger brother. I've known Stacy, I don't know, 30 years. He's like my younger brother, and it's difficult. I too lost my biological younger brother to suicide. So I, definitely identified with what Stacy was experiencing. But for him to start to reach out and to go get help was a big step for him. Stacy always been a big black football player, rough, tough, and to kind of be able to humble yourself a little bit and reach out and say, "Hey, I'm hurting. I need help." It's a big task for us. But I'm happy to say I think we're kind of moving in a direction where, even though it's still happening, it's not happening so much, and we're much more aware of services that's available.
And we pretty much said everything. I see you got a question. I'm gonna come right back to you. You probably got that. So I would say to be transparent and to also provoke our thoughts a little bit within our households is one thing our kids, their kids, our grandparents were taught, hey, I came to you, but you didn't do anything. You didn't say anything. I told you, but you ignored me. Or I'm trying to tell you, but you're not even recognizing what I'm trying to tell you. Therefore, I'm gonna hold this in for the rest of my life. And it builds, and it builds, and it builds. And that's what I'm seeing a lot in my field, is that they tried to ask for help, but they got so scorned from their loved ones or somebody in their home or somebody in the neighborhood that now they don't want to go to help. They don't want to ask anyone for help anymore. Let's think about, if we're going to the word, Jacob. all of his brothers. Right? Is that him? Had 12 brothers? Is that Jacob? Joseph? I'm in the J somewhere. They threw him away. Got rid of him. Because they seen the potential in him, and that's what's happening in the black families. Some of these kids have a lot of potential. Some of the kids were ignored, diminished that. We don't want him to succeed. So now that kid is scared to tell mom, hey, this, my brother or my big cousin or my uncle is doing this to me, or my sister, they're doing this to me. And so now they don't want to talk about it. So that's another thought-provoking idea I want you to know, that if you see a sign where they're trying to tell you something, allow for that conversation.
We're going to go over here. We have a question here.
So my question is for the panelists. Patients come with so much stuff, layers of things that they bring, and we're in a spiritual place, and I realize that this doesn't happen at Fountain of Life, but there are things that are taught to people that are just not right spiritually, but those are things that people carry with them. And getting through those things, success for that person versus where you are as a therapist and what that religious connotation means to you versus them may be very different. How do you get to the place with a patient that brings all this baggage with them? And getting through that is therapy alone. They came for something else. So how do you get to the place that you can help that person, they can receive the help that you have for them, even when Sophia says she might not be a good match for that person?
Okay, other questions?
You want us to answer the question before you ask the next question?
I apologize. I'm sorry.
I don't know, just ask the question you want to answer.
I'm so focused, so I do apologize.
I think Sophia wants to respond.
Please answer the question.
But to the point type of thing. So I always meet people where they at. What's the most prevalent issue that I can work on? And what's a realistic goal that they can actually achieve? I don't want to work on something that's not really achievable. I want to work on the here and now. And for example, I have a client who has a lot of medical issues. And what I'm working with her is, okay, no one's listening to her as far as like a doctor. Well, let me pull out my research, let me see who's a good doctor, and let me see who actually takes your insurance type of thing. I sit down with her because sometimes some people are so stuck with being anxious and things, they can't even do a simple task of like even just making a phone call. So I will make that phone call with them just to get those things started. Even right now to someone needing a new site provider. Some people are scared to even, yes, they have all the coping skills, but the medication's not working. Let me help you, and let me empower you. Let's do this together. And sometimes I give them a chance in between the next session. Hey, it seems like this medication thing is an issue. If you can't get it done by the next session, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to force your hand. That's a social work in me. I'm a problem solver, so therefore we're going to get it done. So now I end up doing it with them, and you're so thankful afterwards realizing, damn, sorry. I can't do a simple task type of thing. Thank you so much for making that phone call for me because I felt stuck. And a lot of people feel like they, in the sense of doing such a simple thing for them just to even get up, brush their teeth. Y'all say just get up and do it, but you don't know what that person is dealing with so simply. So I try to start with the person here and now, and I meet them where they at. However big or small the task may be. That's how I would handle certain situations. Y'all have any other?
I agree 100%. We try to meet people where they're at and prioritize, right? Because we all have baggage, right? We all have a number of things that we want to work on, but I try to identify or help the client identify prioritize those things. I know you told me 20 things that's going on with you. If you had to put them, I want you to write down your top 10 things, okay? You got 20. Write down the top 10 for me. Now from that 10, give me your top 5 out of that 10. All right, now your top 5, give me your top 3 from that 5. And let's make those our therapeutic goals. So we'll kind of work from top to bottom in terms of priority. If, like Sophia said, medical issues was one of the top priorities, then we're going to start with medical issues, right? If that's one of the top things that we need to handle.
Then also, like I said, I'm a solution focused therapist, so I'm not going to allow you to go into your baggage too much. You know, I'll give you one session, maybe two, if you got a lot, right? If you got a lot, I might give you two. But after that, we're going into, you know, if you tell me you're depressed and you have all these things on, tell me a time when you were not depressed, right? Let's not talk about how much you are depressed and all the time. I'm always depressed. No. Let's not, and then we start looking for times where things were going right for the client. We start having the client think about those times where they wasn't depressed. Well, I wasn't depressed when, I had my son. Okay, well, talk to me a little bit about that. So we move away from all the baggage. We get into the here and now, and what would a solution look like? And then we talk about behaviors, right? If you wasn't dealing with all this baggage, and I was watching you, what would I see you doing that would be different? And that would be kind of my approach to that.
And I also, and I'm not a therapist. I'm not a therapist, but I also say too that understanding where that person comes from and what their cultural beliefs are plays a vital role in how you treat them as well. Medical issues may not be their priority in their culture. Mental health may not be a priority in their culture. So I think understanding where they are culturally, what their beliefs are, as it pertains to each situation, is how you can help them a little bit more. And you also, you put the treatment in their hands. They drive the training. You facilitate, but they drive the training. Because you're not going to always get a lot of buy-in from people. If you're dictating to them, hey, you need to do this, that, and the other, and they have no input into their treatment, the likelihood of their being successful is going to be very, very little. That's just my perspective. Some people may, I'm talking about the people who don't seek that help on a regular basis. You put the treatment in there and you help them guide their treatment. But I think understanding culture too and how those things impact their lives help them along their way as well.
Anyone else? We have a question here.
I was late getting here. I heard this thing, maybe I missed my answer. Maybe you all dealt with this already. What I'm wondering is, with the current climate in this country especially, with this gender fluidity business, the social worker made me think of this when you said that you talked about having to be so strong and you didn't bring questions or concerns you had out and you didn't cry because you had to be strong as a Black man. I'm just wondering, with all this gender fluidity and the acceptance that we're seeing of that and the different pronouns that you're having to use with the kids in the school, how this is impacting your job and what you're seeing with kids. Is this making it more difficult for them? Are they terribly confused and that's causing problems? Or is this making it easier for them to speak up and be what they feel is their authentic selves and just be more expressive? Because as women, girls, we can always express ourselves. The boys, not at all, maybe. But maybe now they're feeling that they can express themselves. They can let that feminine energy of theirs out. And I don't know if the older people, from our generation, maybe we don't understand it. And we're not so accepting and we don't know how to deal with it. Now that the society is saying, well, it's okay. Maybe in individual households they had their way of dealing with Johnny or whatever. But now the society is saying, hey, it's okay. How is that impacting? What are you seeing? What are you all seeing? Are you seeing problems? Or are you seeing that they're coming out and they're telling you and they're expressing to you whatever's going on with them?
That's a great question. I'm glad that you even asked that question. We need to understand ourselves what's going on. See, I oversee the challenge district, so what I do is I go in and I look at the IEPs as written, and I support with some of their school counseling and some of them not working out. I go in and give them different approaches to use. And so right now, what I'm actually seeing is more support in the household almost encouraging the behavior now. So if a boy, for instance, is deciding on what he wants to be, the mother now has become an encourager. Well, it's just he wants to paint his fingernails, or he wants to do his both his ears with big old earrings, or he wants to change his hair. So what do the father think? Well, whatever the mother wants. So this is what we're seeing in my field, that we can look at it two ways. And as a therapist, you always got to be non-biased, transparent. You always got to be open. Spiritually, I'm not going to be open to everything. However, I'm not going to neglect you either. So what happens is this: is that I pull the parent in, I have a conversation with the parent, and I understand that the parent had things taken away from them when they were growing up. And so they decided that if their child wants to have freedom in certain areas, they're not going to take that away from them. Now, the two things I'm excited about, well, the one thing I'm excited about, is we are seeing more support in the home for who you are. Because there was a time when a boy would come home, he was gay, dad kicked him out. Couldn't be in the house no more. He hid his feelings. Or daughter came home and, she liked girls, and the whole family turned on her, cut them off, wouldn't pay her for nothing she wanted. But now we're starting to see more support, where the parents are saying, I'm not going to just leave my child. On the flip side, it's also encouraging the behaviors now. So that kid is now feeling more confident about transitioning from a female or male to a female or female to a male. So those are two things that I'm seeing personally, that is more encouragement in the home, and that's where it always starts, the natural support.
Great question. I went to a conference a couple of years ago, and the whole conference was about this. I didn't know that when I went, but the whole conference, all the workshops, this was a several days long conference, in some way, shape, form, fashion, was related to the issue that you brought up. I think we're in a challenging time with that issue for so many reasons. On the one hand, like we discussed earlier, as clinicians, we're tasked to meet people where they are, to be non-judgmental, to be accepting, to be a safe space. And I try very hard to be that and not let my own personal biases impact my ability to work with people who may just believe different things than I believe. I don't feel like all my clients need to have the same beliefs that I have. But it's a challenging time. And at this particular conference, I learned so many extra letters that I didn't even know existed. No, really, that I didn't even know existed. Like really, you wouldn't believe it. It's way beyond the LGBTQ plus. It's huge. And in a lot of ways, I think there's some positives to that. I grew up in a household where I watched my father and other men beat my mother, right? That I grew up, my father actually beat my mother and tried to light her on fire. Poured lighter fluid on. The only thing that saved her is the lighter didn't light. So I grew up around that. And about at, I might have been 13, 14, 15, somewhere around there. I distinctly remember my mother sitting me down and saying, listen, I want to talk to you. So yeah, Mom, what's up? And she says, my friend that you always see me with, a woman, right? So this is more than my friend, that's my girlfriend. That's my partner, right? And she laid it out when I was a teenager. And she said, I've been with men your whole life, you know that, and every single one of them need me. So I've chosen a woman. And ironically, my mom started beating her up. So that was kind of the switch on it. But she sat us down, and I have two brothers, and she told us. My older brother, I was accepting. I was like, cool, Mom. I watched men beat you up the whole life. I'm glad have someone that you feel safer with. My older brother, he wasn't so accepting of it. You know, he was concerned about my younger brother. And well, what is this saying to our little brother? What if he decides he wants to like men? Then what? So, you know, this was brought to you know, my awareness at an early age. I'm happy to say that my mom eventually, through her girlfriends and through her being the aggressor and did not, and then, you know, she found a good woman. She really found a good woman in her life later on in her life and married this woman a couple of years ago. I was in attendance at the wedding, and her name was Donna. Donna was a wonderful person. Donna cared for my mother like nobody else I've ever known to care for my mother. She loved my mother's dirty drawers, if I could put it that way. She loved it to death. She really did. So I've always been in an environment where I was exposed to that, and so I became more accepting of that particular lifestyle. My mom's wife passed away last year. You know, so she's by herself now. But, you know, I thank God every day for Donna. You know, because I really believe she saved my mother's life in a lot of ways, right? I believe she loved my mother back to life, right? Because she loved her so much. But today, again, we're in a challenging time. These things are in schools. They have clubs in schools. There's LGBTQ clubs where they're discussing this. They're providing safe spaces for kids to talk about this. The gender fluidity thing, I didn't even know that was a thing until I had a client, you know, a few years back, and she told me she was gender fluid. I'm like, well, what does that mean? You know, some days I feel like a girl, some days I feel like a guy. Days I feel like a girl, I just a girl. Days I feel like a boy, I just like a boy. You know, and her mother was very accepting, you know, so I was accepting of it as well. But I think it's something that we have to deal with on an individual basis because it's different for everyone. Some parts of society are very accepting, some not so much. We're in a time politically now where that's a big push back against that particular community. Some of it, you know, I think, you know, has its place. Some of it not so much. Transgender women in women's sports, I think, is questionable, right? It's because you basically have men competing against women, and whenever they do it, they're dominating these women, right? And transgender women get in women's sports and they dominate women, hands down. Why? Because they're biological men. So I think it's very tight rope to walk, but I think we have to deal with it individually, and particularly with our children, because they are being exposed to this on a regular basis. They have much more access to information than we could ever have wished to have access to as children. You know, the only thing we had is TV, radio, maybe a dirty magazine that a dad had around the house, something like that, right? And if you grew up in my time, you might have had a couple VHS tapes, you know, and something like that. But a 10-year-old child can see more naked bodies than any of us could ever hope to see in like 5 minutes. You know, on the phone, on the watch, on the computer, on the iPad, whatever. So they have much more access to this type of information. So I think because of things like that, we have to be more open to it, and we have to process it on an individual basis, just based on our belief systems. Because you know, you might be religious, you might not, you know, be accepting of that. But I think if you love your child, then particularly in today's time, then you have to, you know, really come to, you know, a place where you're making decisions based on your love for that child and not necessarily what your belief system might be. It's a tightrope to walk. But I think, you know, it's definitely doable, and it's important that you approach the subject with your children, with the people that you love that might be in that community. Because at the end of the day, as with my mother, I'm going to always love my mom. I don't got to agree with her lifestyle choices. know. And I watched my mom just go from being a crackhead, right? Like back in the 80s, 90s, to having a girlfriend, to being beat up by men, but I love to do it all, and again, I thank God that He sent a woman my mother's way to help her through her life and help her on her journey. That was probably the best thing that could have ever happened. So I think this individually, we have to be very mindful about our love for the people in our family and how we approach them.
Amen. I'd like to stand to this. I want to thank you for that question, because really in the church, we were kind of covering over some of these critical issues that are in the church that we have to deal with spiritually. And so me as a pastor, I come from the perspective that, we say WWJD, what would Jesus do? And when we look at this question with gender fluidity, transitioning and all that, what would Jesus do? Jesus would love. And so from the perspective as a pastor, I follow Jesus. And Jesus loves. When a woman was caught in the very act of adultery, and the religious folk brought the woman to Jesus, what did Jesus do? He said, "You who are without sin, you cast the first stone." And the Bible says that each one of them slowly went away. And so for me, I agree. It's a tough issue. It really is, because it's constantly changing, but at the same time, love never changes. And so we just have to love it. Thank you so much for your transparency and opening, because many times we have all kinds of issues that we deal with personally, and you are a professional, and for you to expose your family situation like that, thank you for that. I really mean that, because many of us need to hear these type of things, because we're not alone. Many of us are dealing with the same type of issues. I dealt with issues in my family with, my father abusing my mother, and I can go on and on and on. And so a lot of that shaped me to be the type of man that I am now, because of what I had to go through. And so I just want us to understand that these issues, particularly with the fluidity and transitioning and all these issues, I'm encouraging everybody, love. Love. Because you're not going to change them by doing what a lot of these other spiritual, religious people are doing. It's just really making me sick to my stomach to see what some of these Christian nationalists are doing in this day and time. It's not love, it's not Jesus. And so we follow Jesus. He's my example. And so we were here in this setting today. Y'all in the church, so I'm here and I'm going to speak the way I'm going to speak from a biblical Jesus perspective.
All right. Another question?
I talk loud for a living.
My name is Harold, and first off, I don't know why there's so many Caribbeans in the desert, because I'm Caribbean too, but that's besides the point. I'm someone that sees the heritage regularly. I actually have an appointment Saturday. But the question I have for you is that for a lot of people and the things that they're working through, the source of it was relationships or people in their lives, right? So us as individuals, we can do the work to come to healing, things like that. But what are some, ideas that you speak to people when it comes to helping them navigate the relationships when that relationship or that person was the source of that, right? Like someone who may have been wronged by a parent. They themselves might be good, but they still have to maintain that relationship with their parent. And I guess, of course, it's case by case, but I was just kind of curious to know how you guys help people navigate the challenging relationships, especially when that person was the one who had did something to them?
I can speak on it. I can give like my own personal experience. A lot of times, like when I do talk to my clients, yes, okay, I got a master's and stuff, but I also live life. So therefore, I didn't have like the best relationship with my mother. However, it came to a point where I felt like, okay, I live here, she's in Philadelphia. Every time we talk, we end up in an argument type of thing. I'm like, you know, I kind of prayed on it. I'm like, God, I don't want to leave this earth, and I don't have a good relationship with my mother. Prayed on it. I wrote a letter of things that I wanted to see change type of thing. Destroyed it, gave it to God or whatever, and things slowly start coming to fruition. I learned just to put up boundaries. A lot of times people don't have boundaries and let people walk all over them and people-pleasing behaviors, you know? So therefore, it came to a point where I had to tell my own mother, because she's dealing with her own issues with my father, I'm like, listen, if you complain about this and I'm giving you the resources to change it, I don't want to hear about it. I just want to, you know, keep it as I love you, and just know that if you end up arguing with me, I'm going to just end the conversation. I'm going to say I love you, and I'm going to hang up the phone type of thing. Then she started getting hits on my game and started trying to do it to me, but I'm going to end this call. All right, end the call then. But it came to a point, I can honestly say it's been over a year now where we have not argued. I would have never thought we ever came to that point, but it came to me putting up boundaries and letting her know I will no longer accept this. And we have a really good relationship. So it all starts with like, where do what do you accept? You know, you gotta look deep down the side as far as like, well, if I don't speak to them, I feel guilty. Well, what about yourself? You know, if you don't take care of yourself, then you can't take care of others. You gotta come first. So therefore, in order for me to improve our relationship, I had to put that boundary up. I had to put myself first. I wasn't gonna be her punching bag no more. However, and then here we are today, having a great relationship, and I'm not going that we don't have an argument because I'm going next week, but you have to put you first. You might feel guilty, but it's okay to feel guilty. You'll get past that guilt, and they're going to get used to you put up those walls, and they're going to have to work around your boundaries. But a lot of times people suffer with that guilt of like, oh my God, I'm always going to be mad at me. So they'll get over it, and they'll find another way to get what they need to get. Don't let people walk over you. And they need family too. All because they got these titles. My boyfriend, my mother, and stuff, you allow these people to take advantage of you, and no more. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It depends on the client, right? For more older clients, adults, or adolescents that are older age, young adults. Sometimes you have to teach people how to love people from a distance, right? You can still love them. That's fine. But, as Sophia said, you have to have a certain amount of boundaries. And you have to love them. I'm from Philly too. So we just learned that. We're both from Philly. The man in the back is from Philly too. Another Philadelphia. Okay, Philly. Okay. But Philly's a rough place, man. Like Philly's a rough place. And when you grow up there, I'm sure just listen to her talk, I'm like, wow, she telling my story, right? I have similar issues. And I had a lot of relationship problems with my family. Just the fact that I wanted to go to college was a problem, right? My brother, right? He would make fun of me. Oh, you're trying to be white. Oh, you think you're better than us. These sorts of things. So that, created some challenges there. But a lot of my family members, particularly ones in Philadelphia, I have to love them from a distance. I can't do and be who and what they want me to be, right? I have to really focus on me and develop myself. So when I have clients that have those kind of problems, I shift the focus away from the relationship to the self, right? What is it that you need to do so you can be in a better space outside of the relationship? And if you get better, then the relationship can get better. You might have a situation, like Sophia's like, I know I need to say these things when things go left. Right? So you might have a situation like that. If then you have a younger client that's having problems with parents or in relationships, it might be more of an installation of hope, right? Like, that's your mom, you're in a situation right now, that's your mom, your dad, whatever, you're in a situation right now, there's not a lot that you can do to change that situation. You're a kid, your parents take care of you. But if you can do this, this, and this, kind of install hope. It won't always be like that. You're getting older, you're getting in a space where you don't have to live with your mother, right? We turn 18, 19, so you gotta go off to college, you know? So that was the thing that saved me in my relationships. I left. I went to school. And the minute I went to school, me and my mother's relationship blossomed because I was no longer living in her home, right? I didn't have the same expectations of my mother because I wasn't living with her anymore, right? And so I didn't have to deal with the same things. I didn't have to deal with the same things with my brother. I wasn't living there anymore. I was kind of on my own. So sometimes it might be teaching about boundaries and how to love people from a distance. Other times it might be more installing hope and helping people navigate this challenging children, like challenging situations until they get old enough to remove themselves from that situation.
I'll just make a quick comment to the gentleman right here, that it's resiliency and let go. You know, if you can let go and overcome, I'm not saying you have to let go completely of that family member, but you can build a relationship with yourself and allow them to build a relationship with themselves. And at some point, if it feels right, it'll come back right. If it's needed. You know, you don't want to have, obviously the dependency was negative. So now you want to dismiss yourself from that for a little bit to rebuild yourself, like Doc was saying. And allow for that person to also build themselves, because both of you all are struggling in the same arena.
I wanted to make a comment. First of all, I'm so glad that you guys are here. Dr. Logan, I so identify with being solution-oriented that sometimes my son say, "Mom, just listen to whatever sometimes." But I really identify with that. I saw myself in the methodology that you use. And so I thank you for explaining that. I also saw I see the pain. Sophia, my best friend, the one that spoke, she could testify, had those same issues, major issues with my mother growing up. And it was extremely painful. And how do you get where you can have, I'm talking about myself, self-confidence about yourself? And what I have dealt with, and I'm not going to tear up, but it's very hard for me. And my friend and I have had conversation about it in the last week, is how do you deal with mentally when people have so many misconceptions about you? And I've dealt with that so many times as a woman. And all you want to do is be the best version of you. Sometimes I've had the experience, and they'll calling as too, that people think you are different than what you really are. That you may think you're too good. That you may think that, you don't want to speak to us. But sometimes just, and I see you nodding your head, it's just being me. And it's just being you. And us women don't get that grace. Because other women talk about us. And they make it really difficult. And so, my testimony is that I have had to do the same thing as you. Learn to put boundaries. Learn to say, Mom, I love you, but I'm going to go. And that's not easy. And I know we've been talking about Black men, but how do we as women learn to have that self-help, that self-care, and that self-love? Because where I am at in this season of my life, and I may not look at it, but I am very seasoned in my age, is I don't care. I don't care. But some people may not be where I am and where you are. And how do you speak to that? Especially for women. Especially because we get so many different types of labels. And I'm being really real. I don't talk about it. I talk about it with my best friend. But it can be hurtful. But you know, you have to keep going as though you're not hurt. You have to keep going as if you're not hurt. Because sometimes, I'll be real, I said, I'm not going to let them see me back this. Now, I said that in my mind, but how do women deal with those type of things, mother-daughter issues, when other women just talk about you, and they don't even know you, and you mentally have to fight through in your career? Those kind of issues. So I'd like to hear a couple of comments.
So tell me, you said a whole speech. So what's exactly like this? What's your exact question? So I can answer.
Say that again?
So what's your exact question?
My question is how do we empower women? What are some strategies that women can have when they're going through various other things that involve their environment, their career, dealing with other people, dealing with people talking about them, dealing with your mother? I know that's a lot.
So I can speak on my own experience. I could tell you a client experience too as well. So I'll give you for one instance. I'm working with this black girl, newly assigned to me and everything, and she had issues with her mother. She feels as though that my mom took care of me my whole life type of thing. My dad wasn't involved with me. However, I feel as though that I feel indebted to, take care of her. I can't afford it. I'm like, well, you didn't ask me either type of thing. Just kind of bringing things down. Somebody asked me to be here in the sense of being born, it comes to a point where it's like, how much you want to keep giving? That's supposed to take care of our parents. But at this point, when you look at when someone's taking advantage of me, because she was paying her mother's rent and everything else. However, her sister could financially pay for the rent also as well. She is also on the leases as well for her mother. So I kind of helped empower her in the sense of telling her my story. Just a part of it of like, hey, this is how I was able to move forward and put these boundaries up with my mother as far as like, hey, I love you, intimate type of thing. I helped her. She felt guilty in the sense of like, well, I can't afford it. Like I can't afford anything for myself. I paying like her rent. And I'm like, listen, what can you give? Like realistically, you can live. I can give this amount of money. I'm like, well, listen, let's work together. And I want to, let's write this letter up to your mother, text message, so that you can send it. Now, I'm like, if you're afraid to send it, hey, just schedule it to send so you're not afraid to send it. But at the end of the day, this is what you can send to her. So we had our next session this week actually, and she surprised me. She was like, actually, they agreed with me. And she was totally shocked that you could have been said this and put these boundaries up, but you was afraid. And I feel like a lot of times people are afraid to speak up for themselves. I was never really afraid to speak up for myself. So me and my mom always argued because we both out for the money. So, but it had come to a point where I had to calm myself down. I'm like, I have to talk to her like a human so she can hear me, because both of us is, yelling and who's going to get the best word and we ain't going to get nowhere. So I'm reverting back to me now as far as like, when I moved out here to Arizona, they still was calling on me to help them. And even though I'm living in Arizona, I'm still handling this, I'm handling that. And I'm like, y'all got 5 people in that house. Why y'all calling me? And it had to come to a point where I'm like, they will figure it out. And guess what? Once I let go and I'm like, don't call me for this. I got a life too. Guess what? They figured it out. Everyone ends up figuring out, even when people use you and things like that, you feel like, oh my God, what are they gonna do without me? They gonna figure it out. So you gotta learn to take care of yourself and then allow people to get that overfill of everything else. Because again, I keep repeating this, if you have nothing, how can you give from an empty cup or a half-filled cup? People need to get to overfill. So I had to learn to pour into myself, and me being out here in Arizona, no, I don't love it. However, it taught me to I don't. But, however, I learned to love myself. And that's what I can appreciate about being out here for almost 9 years. I learned to be happy with myself, be alone with myself. And no, I don't have a lot of friends out here. Philly got so many friends, but it stripped me away from running away from things. I had to deal with myself. So I feel like people need to deal with themselves as far as like, what are your issues? Do you really love yourself? And when I question that to some people, like, man, do I even really love myself? Put myself, first. I had to learn it for myself to preach that to other people. I'm like, you need to take a step back and realize, are you even taking care of yourself? Even doing anything simple as like, let me do the things that I love to do, like gardening, or just, I want to sleep in instead of like, go, go, go. When do you ever get to sit with yourself and really sit with your thoughts and really grow? You don't grow just being busy all the time and blocking out those things. So I just feel like start doing things yourself and not being so codependent. Because a lot of times people are codependent just so they don't have to think about their problems, I feel like. So I had to sit with myself honestly and realize, hold on, this is not a normal relationship that I had with my mother. And my mother thought our relationship was perfect, even with the argument. She said, I thought our relationship was perfect. I said, no, Mom, arguing like this is not healthy for me, and I don't want this. And just me just reiterating that and sticking to that, she caught on, and then, like I said, I feel like we have a great relationship now. Even though I went away, yes, the relationship improved, but it wasn't healthy still. So I had to be the leader, but I had to be an example. Yes, I'm here something.
Man?
I'll say something to that. I'm gonna bring, let's go into the subject. Let's take the whole woman and man thing off of us for a second. So if we do that, I myself was always looked at like, oh, you think you're better than everybody. So you know what it did? It made me not want to be better than everybody. It took my own confidence from me. I would have to hide when I had straight A's around my friends. I had straight A's from kindergarten to 12th grade through college. All of my friends would be sitting there getting on punishment, getting whoopings, and I would lie. I had to be too. Because I didn't want to be confident. Because they would say, hey, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't be confident. So I grew up. I don't want to be the best at this. I don't want to be the best at that. And so then you have yourself. You blossom, you're gorgeous and beautiful at the age that you are, and you're overly confident. And that's fine. Don't let nobody steal that. Regardless of our therapeutic approaches, you still got to live with you, but live in your truth. If you're confident, you're confident. You can't do nothing about that.
I'm not a therapist. And I probably trigger people way more than I heal them. I was a massage therapist at one point, so maybe I'm wrong. But I actually definitely want to speak to this because I am absolutely that guy that people have looked at and asked, who does he think he is? Right? And so, like you said, we've developed mechanisms for it. So I developed this false sense of humility where it's like, and I don't know if it's false because the truth is I don't really want my name on the marquee. I really do genuinely want things to go well. But what I have learned to start doing is to talk to people. And sometimes they don't want to talk to you because their perception of you is so strong in their mind that they can't get through. But if there's a group of 10 people, there's somebody that you can talk to. And there's somebody that you can talk to who can talk to everybody else. And I feel like with the relationships with our children, like I literally witnessed Rodney Bontemps before he left with his son, he asked his son, am I a good communicator? And his son literally said, when you're not yelling. And so he realized that he had to stop yelling, like he said, so that he could be heard. And so these are, I feel, issues that we're all going through. And so what I've started to do, because I'm not great at it yet, I still trigger people simply with my presence. And 9 times out of 10, it's not just your presence, it's what they've thought about you in the back and your presence triggers that. You are stronger than that. You can break through it. The truth of the matter is we get to the point where we lie to ourselves and we develop this mindset of, oh, I don't care. And that is just so that we can, for me, so that we can behave properly. The truth of the matter is, we care. We care very deeply. And so in the conversations, even though if I'm talking to Corey may believe for 100% that I don't care at all. I'm still going to talk to Corey, and I'm going to attempt to express the fact that I care. And sometimes when we're doing business, there are parameters that are controlling the situation and the circumstances, that we have to deal with, but I think that in the spirit of better together, the conversations that we don't have leave space for the ideas that we don't want to be. So I try to have the conversations, sometimes knowing that I'm not going to be received, knowing that they're not listening to me, knowing that they heard something else and that's what they're believing. But for me, today, maybe not a month ago, but for me today, it feels a lot better to have those conversations and possibly get to the point of resolution, because I try to let go of my past and I try not to hold on too much to the future, but I can't lie about the fact that possibility is exciting. So the possibility that we might be able to build from where we are is enough for me to have the conversation. I would suggest, not professionally, of course, because I'm not professional, but I would just suggest to not give up before we've tried. I literally said that to the son this morning. There are obstacles that sometimes we believe that are there. And what happens is, instead of allowing the obstacles to do their job, because that's their job, right? Obstacle. So instead of letting the obstacles do their job, we do their job for them and we give up before we even try. So my suggestion is, if there is an obstacle, let the obstacle stop you. Don't let you stop you. Because I know for a fact you do care, like I care. You're very passionate, you're very diligent in what you do. So care. It's okay. I love you. So we're gonna fail, and you'll get keyed over there. Come on.
All right. Say
We can't hear you.
I just want to say that I got the point as saying that I don't care. It was Annette's made a decision, no matter what environment I'm in, and what people think, it's not going to affect me. Because at some time it did affect me. But that's not who I am now. And to tell you, I'm glad that Doreen and I had a conversation last week. And then the Lord helped me to realize sometimes I can't take on the problems that somebody else has in their possession, good or bad. So I appreciate you.
I just want to just chime in. I think it's all right to not care, right?
Oh, yeah.
I think so. I think it's perfectly fine. I think when we get to a certain point in our journey in life, we have to be able to let go, right? You can't care about everything and everybody. This person said that, or this person said this. So I think it's wonderful that you get to a space where you're choosing where to put your energy, right? It's an active choice as opposed to, you feeling obligated or feeling some kind of way because the person, maybe talking about you. Women are women, right? Women are women. I love y'all. But I'm different. Y'all a little different. You do have a little bit more of the talking about each other, a little bit more of the cadence and things like that. But I think when you get to a certain point in your own journey where you begin to love yourself a lot more, then those things don't become as important. And also the same people you start with aren't necessarily the people that you finish with.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's fine. Yeah. Right? Because we all grow at different rates. So somebody might be your girlfriend and y'all might have a tight relationship for years and years, and then whatever might transpire, and then all of a sudden you find out they're talking behind your back. They're saying nasty things about you. Okay, that might hurt, might not feel good, but having the wherewithal to kind of move beyond that and saying that's okay, I'm still going to work on me and continue in my journey and being the best woman that I can be. And then you find the other people that you identify with, that resonate with you and where you are in your life right now. And like you found your girlfriend here, right? And your best friend, and she plays certain roles in your life. And I think if we can continue to do that, just put energy where it's being reciprocated. And when you're in a situation, a relationship with a friend or whomever, and that energy is no longer being reciprocated, it's become toxic or negative in some way, shape, form, or fashion, then you move beyond that. Accept that as being okay. Don't feel slighted or hurt. Well, we're supposed to be friends forever. Maybe you're not supposed to be friends forever. They had a moment. It was a moment in your life. and then you continue along the journey. So I think it's okay to let go of people. I think it's okay to come to a place where you're not caring about what people say, think, or do regarding you, because you're secure. You're a seasoned woman. I'm a seasoned man. I'm secure in who I am as a man. So the things that people say about me or may say about me don't have as much impact as they may have had when I was a lot younger. You know, so at this point in my life, I'm like, I don't really care. You can say what you want, because I'm going to continue to focus on me and work on me to be a better version of myself, the best version of myself that I can be.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, man. Okay, so I guess this is around the time frame. I'm just going to turn these into my closing remarks because I'm going to go on forever. I'm very, very happy. Like, there's actually a gospel song that somebody put me on to, the Tasha Cobb song called Overflow. And at this point right now, with everything that I've seen and the conversations that I've heard, my heart is full. And I really just want to find a way to inspire us to simply lead with love. Be a little bit more compassionate. We're all going through things. We've all been attacked. Our whole entire community has been attacked. It's constant. It's happening every single day. Every single person that you encounter may or may not be going through something. But there's a chance, there's almost a 0% chance that they haven't been through something. And so we all have been through things. Remember how you felt in that moment every single time. And when you remember how you felt, just like Dr. Quebec was saying about think about what you would have wanted in that situation. And be that. Try to be that. I do too. I've been flooded a lot, and that's enough. But I'm gonna keep on trying, and I'm gonna keep on trying to be the person for my son that I wish I had as a child. And so, yeah, love is the key. I'm gonna pass it on to Bishop with I don't know if it's called scripture. Fix my vocabulary if you can. And I don't even know exactly which passage it is, but he's going to tell you because I'm going to say it. He who does not know love does not know God, because
God is love.
And so, yeah, actually, I'm going to leave you. You can lead them with Psalms 133 because that's also beautiful, right?
Psalm 133.
Yes, I know that. That's the one. Right. So yeah, so Bishop Russell.
You could be all of us.
Come on the stage. Come on the stage.
Supposed to know every scripture, everything. Without a cell phone in front of me, how good and how pleasant it is for brothers to dwell together in unity. It's like the oil that flows down from Aaron's beard, even to Mount Hebron. Verse 3 says, the Lord commands the blessing, and that is where the blessing is when we walk in unity.
Yeah, you did a picture on the spot, and I did. Actually, Wayne Page, she just told me not to be afraid of putting people on the spot, so that's why I was practicing that. And
come on, y'all, let's bless the Lord for all the time. This brother can talk. I was warned before you and I, when you sent me that text, I was warned by Pastor Bill, I'm going to run the bus. She said, that brother can talk. But I enjoyed the conversation that we had, and I've enjoyed it today. Once again. And I want to thank God for Dr. Logan, amen, Stacy, Sophia, and Corey. Thank you all very much for being here with us. This has really been enlightening. This is about our third forum, and this was different. It was really different, and I liked this atmosphere. So thank you. Thank all of you for coming, those of you who are watching via streaming. Before we close out, my wife is going to come. She has a couple things to say as it relates to our connection with the Mayo Clinic. We are one of the 8 churches in the valley that has partnered with the Mayo Clinic, and so we've been doing some things And so we want to continue to move forward, and we would like for you to join us in that.
Okay, I just want to say this one more time about the Mayo Clinic Community Research Registry. If you didn't get a copy of the form, we still have them here, and we really need your help in making sure that we have representation with in the community, in the medical community. I also want to thank all of those who have to put this on. Thank you, Pastor Miller, who keeps mental health at the forefront for not only the Fountain of Life House of Worship, but for the community. And I know that there's plans to have at least 2 more before the end of the year. We want to thank all of the Qs who came along to help us in partnership to put this on. Fountain of Life House of Worship is really committed to the body, the soul, and the spirit of humanity, and to all of the people that we encounter and come alongside with. And last year we spent a lot of time with women's health. And this year it is, we're trying to heighten our focus on men's health. And so next month, we're going to be having a men's health and wellness workshop here on the campus. And we're, Mayo Clinic community is coming alongside of us to help to facilitate that workshop. Some of the topics will be on understanding men's health, health and nutrition and fitness, prevention and screening. And so we want to make you aware of what's going on. And what I'm finding is that men don't always do these things on their own. We need the women to come alongside of them, sit in the workshop with them to make sure they get here. So I'm making this announcement. It is for men, but we appreciate if the girlfriends and partners and wives will bring their men out here.
What is that?
It's going to be on June 14th. And we'll hear more about that. I think that was all I had to say. Okay, Father, we thank you, Lord, for this time. We thank you for this opportunity to be in the house, to hear all of what you prepared for us. We ask right now that you would help us to take it, meditate on it, take it out, and see how everything that was spoken and said applies to us. That we know that you know the inside. You know us from the inside out, and you know the very heart of the thing that concerns us the most. And we trust, Lord, that you would deal with that right now in a very real way. We ask right now that you would cover every life that is in here, that you would help us to be more aware of who you are and how our relationship with you really affects our mental health. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. All right. Amen. If any of you have any questions, or if you want to talk to any of the panelists, they're making themselves available for you. Any questions? So again, thank you.